Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session, Redefining Made in India, Creating a Circular Textile Chain. We actually look very much forward to having you on board and look forward to having an interactive, fruitful session. Maybe good as a starting point to give a bit of context about who we are and why we're here. So we are Enviu, we work for Enviu, and we're currently working with IKEA Foundation on a pioneering journey, I would say, actually, to build and scale ventures in India that turn textile waste into value and thereby also enhancing livelihoods locally. And what we'll be doing in this session is to explain you a bit more about our bigger picture and a vision, but also really show the impact we're concretely making on the ground. And that's made possible thanks to IKEA Foundation. And maybe good as a process, just share any questions you have in the chat. We're very happy to answer them in between. And let us first introduce ourselves. Yeah, so I'm Marieke Lenders, head of Reweave. That's our textiles program, where, as I just said, we really focus on building ventures in India in the textile space to contribute to a circular and fair sector. With me is Hema.
Hi everyone, I'm Hema. I currently head Kalum Textiles India. At Kalum, we weave high-end sustainable fabrics with recycled yarns. We also employ local hand weavers to produce these beautifully crafted fabrics.
Hey, and I'm Gigi, and I lead Enviu in India, and I spearhead the circularity agenda. So, namaste from Bangalore, India, which means I'm really excited to be here. And that means, Tia, can you please go to the next slide? Because I have something very interesting to ask our friends from the IKEA Foundation. So, you know what? I thought let's start with a little exercise. All right. So, let's probably move around a bit because this is what I want you to do. I want you to look at the screen, and I'm sure you've seen a label which says "Made in India." So it could be on your T-shirt, or a jacket, or maybe even a pillow. So I want to know, probably in chat, if you can just type out from wherever you are, what comes to your mind when you see "Made in India" on a label. So I'm going to have Lotika send me a few thoughts that any of you are typing. What comes to your mind when you see a label? Made in India. It makes me proud. Made in India. So I'm going to wait for a few responses. I would really, really love to know. But Marika, in the meantime, what comes to your mind when you hear about and when you see something which is made in India?
I think handicrafts and ancient traditions, like a long-standing knowledge of textiles, that's definitely something that comes to mind to me.
Nice.
I think Hema can agree with that.
We are part of the handloom revolution. Hema, made in India would mean that.
Yeah, for me, I mean, textiles is India. I think we have such a long history in textiles, and labels is just another part of it, I think. So, yeah. That's what it comes to me.
I just see one, Gigi.
Yeah, and yes, I think apart from everything that we hear about the uniqueness, the largeness of production, I know that we also hear about low quality. Sonali says low quality, and then we hear about sweatshops. Anybody else in terms of made in India? Where's everyone tuning in from?
I here see poor working conditions.
Yes.
Self-sufficiency.
Nice. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide because there's something I want to give you about made in India, the aspect of made in India. So as we know, India is one of the largest production producers and exporters of cotton. So when we think of made in India, especially in the textile industry, we think of the one of the largest industries which is out there, which is the textile industry, which also means it's one of the largest employment generators in the country. And the other thing that some interesting things that we need to know is that India is one of the largest producers of jute, whether it's cotton fibers or man-made fibers. And the fundamental strength is the strong production base of what India has of man-made and natural fibers. But of course, along with that, in our next slide is, of course, it comes with concerns, and we all know that, and that's why a lot of us are on the ground working on it. So if you look at the textile industry is the second largest polluting industry in the world, right? And where you would see also waste being put into landslide, and of course the topic which never ends, the unfair working conditions. So I know these are some concerns, and like I said, we're all here on the ground trying to work towards making solutions that is going to cause systemic change within the industry. Next slide, please. Here, next slide.
Yeah, so maybe to add to that, indeed, Gigi, I think what quite some mentioned indeed, and also what I think is well known is that a challenge that it's not only for India but for the textile industry globally is that it's at this moment really it's caught in a linear system of take, make, waste. And what we mean by that is you take raw materials, so cotton from India, you make a garment, and after use it's thrown away and it's seen as waste. And that's even more strange if you know how much it costs to produce a garment in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, water usage that is in cotton production, but also chemicals used to dye your shirt or your dress. So it is really impactful to produce it, but yet we throw it away quite quickly. And also what you see in the current paradigm is that we have become to see clothes more and more as a disposable item. You buy it and you throw it away. So now we buy twice as many clothes as 15 years ago, and only 1% of that gets recycled back into textiles, and a big chunk ends up within the landfill within even a year after production. So the system is just not sustainable, and combined with what you just said about the working conditions, not living fully up to the standard in terms of formal contracts, wages, working conditions themselves in terms of health and safety. I think we're still really stuck in an unsustainable paradigm, not only in India, but globally. So to the next slide, please, Thea. What we as Enviu, what we're doing about is that we believe in a circular and fair value chain and sector, and we build those companies that really tackle those issues and that turn the waste into value. So we phase out the waste in the textile sector locally, and we do that by building companies that prevent the waste in the first place in the production process, but also building companies that turn the waste see it as a valuable resource so that it can be used again and again. And with that, also creating circular jobs. So with building those companies, it's almost a new sector arising with new specialties and new skills that are needed to make sure that we really close that loop on waste. And by doing so, we also really improve the lives of the people working in our companies. And in the next slide, I think that summarizes it perfectly. So what we're really doing about is going from this linear economy where everything is trash to a circular economy where we really phase out waste and nothing is waste anymore, but really seen as a valuable resource that can be used again and again. And maybe as a next slide, please. Sorry, Thea. Yeah. So this is the bigger picture, how we believe in Enviu, how we can do that. So we build those disruptive companies, and after this, we'll talk really about the case studies that we're working on. But we build those disruptive, scalable companies that really pave the way, showcase what's possible to really inspire the sector and also others to go along and also implement circular and fair business models to really phase out waste and in that way create a new normal. And that's exactly what Tesla has been doing, right? So Tesla, quite some years ago, was, I think, one of the first innovators in the car space, one of the first who made electrical cars. And they were still niche and really rowing against the current. I think also that's what we feel. And by scaling and really having this disruptive innovation, you inspire others to follow. And last week, I even read in the newspapers in the Netherlands that Tesla is losing shares in the Netherlands because the other brands have followed and they're taking over the shares of electrical vehicles. And that's exactly what we aim to do, to really make sure that it becomes a new normal, so that the linear system in India is replaced by a circular and fair system. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Marieke. That was a lot of insightful information. I'm sure people made notes. I'm going to test you on that, but for now, I need some imagining to happen. So again, for our audience and for all those tuned in, I need for you to imagine, right? I always seem to be coming up asking you all to do things, but yeah, it's time for that. So I want you to imagine the living room of the future. So I want you to write in chat something that comes to your mind, maybe a color or object, a feeling, an expression, something. So, I mean, Lotika's telling me the chat is buzzing with information. Wherever you're all from. And I think the concept of a living room is everywhere all around the world. So I need for you to relax in that living room and imagine what the living room of the future is to you. So anything, an object, an expression, a feeling, a name. Marieke, what comes to your mind when we're doing this? I mean, what is that one thing about the living room of the future? Oh, I like Lotika says someone's written lots of white. Oh my. So we probably have very good cleaning liquid in the future. I love
that. I would be thinking about long-lasting materials.
Yeah.
Timeless.
Because white is relaxing, of course. Of course. White is relaxing, so everything in white. Hema, what's your living room of the future?
Minimalistic.
Minimalistic. Oh, wow. Yes.
Yes.
Anybody else? Work from home. Yes. I like this. You know, we forgot about this has been trending. The living room of the future is work from home. Yes, that's what we're doing, and that's where I am right now. Sun. Oh, I like this. Someone said sun. Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so I love that you all are imagining. Tia, next slide, please. While you're imagining, this is what Enviu has been doing on the ground. So a future living room could be curtains made from rejuvenated cotton waste by Purify, or maybe cushions that it is made from hand-woven recycled yarns from Kaloom, or a couch which has leather tanned with natural bio-based tanning agent. I welcome you to the futuristic living room, which is already there right now, which Enviu is creating and building world-changing companies around them. So I invite you into this room to come in and sit and have a cup of coffee with us. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is, while you're sitting on that couch and you're feeling the leather and also looking at the curtain and the cushion, I'd like to take you, a little more into the endless life of a curtain, where that curtain would never end up in a landfill. That curtain is going to always going to come back into your living room, maybe in a different color, maybe in a different design, but that curtain is your best friend for life. That waste is then not waste, but waste is raw material, which goes back into manufacturing from a linear model to a circular model, the circle of life, the endless life of a curtain. Next slide, please. And while you're still sitting on that sofa, I want you to watch this video. Bump up the volume, Thea, for this. We can't hear the music, but this is about Kaloom, and this is about what Kaloom does. I love that. Maybe silence is the best music for this. And if you love that video, then you're going to love having Hema with me on deck for my next, bit of conversation. Hey, Hema, welcome on board. And there's one thing I have to say, Hema, which you have to really explain to me. I mean, look at that lovely weaver on screen and that smile she has. Do tell us about her. Every time I walk into the unit, I think that's the characteristic of Kaloom, the smiles of weavers. Do tell us about this. Who is she?
Yes, Gigi, that's true. Because all our weavers wear smiles when they come to the factory. But that smile conveys a lot more than just a smile. It also conveys pride, belonging, and happiness. Because they're happy to be in Kaloom, where we have a safe and clean environment for the workers, especially the women workers. Even during the lockdown, they were very keen to come and work because we had so many orders and they wanted to keep up the delivery schedules. And this is only because they have a sense of belonging to Kaloom and they value the work they're putting into Kaloom.
Okay, thanks for that, Hema. For our audience out there, can you tell us what Kaloom is all about?
Yes, I'm going to get started. And if I'm going to be talking too much, please stop me, Gigi, because Kaloom is very close to my heart. So Kaloom stands for sustainability, and we weave high-end sustainable fabrics with recycled yarns on handlooms. Now, Kaloom has a social as well as an environmental impact. Now, the environmental impact comes because we are using the recycled yarns, which means textile waste is being put into use. There is no carbon dioxide emission because we're weaving on handlooms, and because we are using recycled, water is being conserved. This is the environmental impact. With the social impact, we are employing women weavers, mainly women weavers. We don't have gender bias, but it's mainly women weavers whom we are employing, and we provide them a very safe and clean environment to work in with fair standard living wages. This makes them very happy to come and work in Kaloom, and most of these women have never stepped out of their houses before. So for them to come and work in Kaloom is a big thing. And they're very proud that they're working. Their family supports them, and their children are also very proud that their mothers are working in a factory and contributing to the household expenses. So as you can see, Kaloom supports livelihood. And to go a step further, because Kaloom weaves on handlooms, we are preserving the ancient art of hand weaving and encouraging the younger generation to take this up, because they know there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it doesn't mean that the handloom weaving has to stop completely. So that's a very brief thing about Kaloom, Gigi.
Yeah, I love that. I love also always hearing any news or any bit about Kaloom and its empowered weavers. There was something very special that happened, right, in Kaloom, and a special event, and I remember attending that in all its grandeur. Tell us about that.
Yes, Gigi, yes. So since we found that there was a market for the Kaloom fabrics and it was time to expand, we moved to a larger premise. We added more looms, and now we have 25 looms in Kaloom. And it's been a great experience and very, very eventful having the new looms and more workers. We provided more employment to weavers and to other workers in the winding and the warping. So it's now a bigger family.
Yeah, and you know what, Hema, this is something I extend to everybody at the IKEA Foundation. When you visit Bangalore, do visit the unit. The weavers would love, Hema and the weavers would love to have you. But Hema, there's one thing I really want to ask you about, all right? So I know customers all over, have been talking about the special weaves at Kaloom, right? Tell us about that, because and I'm not talking about something that is very niche or something that only a few people can do, but I can see like large brands being very interested in your weaves. Some light on that.
Correct, Gigi. Because I think our fabrics are it appeals to a larger audience. It's also very commercial. It's for profit. It is very commercial, and the basic focus is the recycled yarns. And recycled yarns have an inherent nature which is preserved when you're weaving it on handlooms, which is what happens in Kaloom. So we preserve the inherent nature of the fabrics. We follow the design and the trends which are in the market today. We look at the customer requirement, and that's how our collection and fabrics are made. And to top all of this, we have very good quality standards. So our fabrics are high-end, good colors, good fabric feel, good weaves and everything. So I think that's why we have a good market outside India as well as within India.
Yeah, and that too, so, and made from recycled yarn.
Made
Because
from recycled yarns.
yeah, and one thing I just want to mention that the government of Karnataka had actually reached out to Kaloom, asking the weavers of Kaloom to upskill the weavers, which the government also runs with, to actually train them on these weaves. So I know that's on the cards, Hema. But also tell us what's on the card. What's the big plan in the next few years?
Yes, in the next few years, as we see that there is a demand for our fabrics, there is a market. We plan to have about 100 plus looms in 2023-2024. That means supporting employment of more than 150 workers. And this means having more sustainable fabrics also being woven, which means more impact on the environment. And I think that's really, I'm sure with all the partners we have who think like us, I feel confident that we will get there.
Yes, I absolutely believe, and I believe with also, partners who IKEA Foundation empowers Kaloom along with other partners to actually, build Kaloom into a world change. It already is a world changing company, but I'm sure in its scalability, it's going to cause, great changes and big strides. Thank you, Hema. And
Gigi, the one more thing which I wanted to say was, I mean, if anybody from IKEA or the IKEA Foundation is in Bangalore, they should visit the factory to see and experience Kaloom, because only when you visit the factory, you really feel that. And you look at the smiles on the faces of the workers.
Nice. I like that you and I said it. Great minds.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have them. So thanks, Hema. Continue sitting on that couch in the living room. Okay, don't go. Have that cup of coffee. And if there are questions about Kaloom, we'll take it in the end. But I'd like to welcome on deck back with me Marike, and we're going to talk about the Purify Learning Center.
Yeah, let's talk about Purify, because we of course said we're building ventures and scaling ventures and turning waste into value. And I think also, in addition to Kaloom, Purify is a really inspiring example of that. So could you maybe tell us more, Gigi, about, first of all, for the IKEA team, what is Purify? What does Purify? And also, why is it such a groundbreaking or disruptive innovation that could really turn the sector towards a new normal?
Yeah, I think it's about all those smiles that Purify is causing in the industry. And also another thing I'd like to say, Joy, who's the CEO of Purify, always says there's magic juice in it. But one thing I'll tell you, this technology is groundbreaking because it's about rejuvenation of textile waste. That means that waste, post-production textile waste is, compared to what's existing right now, where waste is mechanically shredded and downcycled, this particular technology rejuvenates fibers, does not destroy fibers, but separates fibers so much so that the output is as good as the virgin input. And one more groundbreaking thing I'll tell you about this is that in most of the recycled yarns and fibers that you see nowadays, say for example, in a yarn, it's actually blended. The industry uses about 20 to 30% and maybe lesser percentage of recycled fibers to make that yarn, and the rest of the percentage is virgin fiber use. But with Purify and its technology, you can even use it 100%. It's 100% recycled, and that's what making it very groundbreaking. And the fact that also it's large scale. We're talking about, rejuvenating 40 million kgs, in our plan for in the next few years. That's the scalability of this technology.
Yeah, so it really can close the loop on waste in that sense, right? To really bring it back in, and you don't need virgin new fibers anymore.
Yeah. And we don't need new fibers. And the fact that waste becomes raw material, so it goes back into remanufacturing, right? And there's no waste anymore. We don't call waste, we call them raw material.
Exactly. And what if you look now at those ladies in the sorting center who look indeed also very proud to be there? What value do they then add to this business model and to the waste that was previously waste and now a resource?
Yeah, so what happens in the industry right now is waste is collected from the whole, I'm talking about post-production waste, right? From factories, they collect it as a whole and they mechanically shred it, and of course there are uses for it. But what these women do at the sorting center is bring value to waste. That is, in its sorting. So when you sort waste according to composition, according to finishes, according to counts, according to color. I mean, it's just not about sorting it cotton, polyester, colors, but when you go into very technical and fine sorting, then waste, there's so much value to that waste. And there are different uses of sorted waste. And these women who were informal waste collectors before they joined Purify actually have been upskilled and trained to excellent methods of sorting, which is also the USP of Purify.
Yeah, and that's where you exactly see that there's a whole new sector emerging with new types of job, with new types of skills and specialties needed indeed. Very,
Absolutely.
very impactful.
Yes, I agree.
And you already gave us a bit of a sneak peek, I think, but I think it's really, I'm very curious, and I think also the team is very curious to hear, if you now look at where you're now with the sorting center, what is the status, what is the impact already made, and what is the impact ambition you have in the upcoming years?
Alrighty, and I think at this, the sorting center was started last year, and we had women who were affected with the first wave of COVID in India, and they were the informal waste collectors. And you know how waste is collected in India. I mean, I really don't have to tell you about the circumstances. But the Purify Sorting Center is an ethical sorting center. It's a sorting center that provides a safe environment, along with training the women on these techniques of sorting. So what I want to tell you is, and this is both in India and East Africa that we have these sorting centers. And at this point of time, we have created almost 100 jobs, and we're moving towards, in 5 years, about 5,000 jobs that we would create. And let me tell you about these jobs and livelihoods that I'm talking about. I mean, this was something that the industry has not seen, where you upskill waste pickers and train them about the nuances of sorting, thus adding value, right? And at this point of time for the year, we're looking at sorting about 3,000 tons of waste this year. And of course, in the next 5 years, we're looking at about close to 40,000 tons of waste being sorted. And that's the big plan. And our ladies at the India Sorting Center are getting there. There's so much so that we put together, but they've been able to sort this out all manually and by hand, and it's been excellent quality right now. So very proud of our sorters, both in India and East Africa. Big shout out to them.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe I see also a question coming in. I don't know if it was related to Kaloom or Purify, but I can imagine that it's a bit same of an answer. Is what does this empowerment mean for the relationship between the women and their community? So what is the response from men? Maybe also Hema knows, or you?
Yeah. Hema, first you answer that for Kaloom.
Okay, so I mean, that's a really nice question. And the women are really respected in their communities because they come to work, they're contributing to the household expenses. So the men are also equally supportive of the women coming to work at Kaloom. So it's really, really a nice, it's very nice to see it like that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you about the sorting center. Last year was really, really bad for the underserved, and especially for the informal jobs, the ones who held the informal job, because all that was lost. So it didn't give time for men to actually think, should their women go out to work? It was survival or that's it. And we had a lot of women actually go out there and, work to at least get 2 meals a day. In fact, move on to the next slide, Thea. This is something that I want to, bring forward. Now, these are some of the ladies who work at our sorting center, right? And Gen Z could afford daycare and get back to work, which means that her family could actually, have food on the table, could actually have, I remember Gen Z's mother was unwell, and she was the one who actually supported that bill. And Valya, she has an empowering story, Valya, because she said she didn't even have food to eat on certain days. And with this job, she's able to provide for her family and a sick husband. And of course, another person that I'd like to highlight is Sarla, because school became online in India. And online means that a child needed to have mobile phones. And you would have heard, and if you would have read a lot of bit of news where children dropped out because their parents couldn't afford mobile phones or pay for subscriptions. But Sarla could get her children back in school. They had dropped out because they didn't have that kind of income. So I think this has been very empowering, and especially for the sorting center during COVID. So this is something that, if I have to move to the next slide, which always makes me very proud, Tia, and drum roll here. These are stories about made in India. And I'll tell you one thing, Enviu is all about building world-changing companies. And of course, we're empowered with partners like IKEA Foundation, who have made this absolutely possible. So I think with this, having said this, I really want to look at more questions, seeing if there's anything else you have for Hema, Marike, or me. We'd love to answer it. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave you also with our email IDs if you would like to, write to us. See, I told you about the smiling weavers, right? That's another smiling weaver from Kaloom. And yes, and those are our email IDs on screen. You can always, we'd love to hear from you and love to say hi. And of course, also visit us for the third time, I'm telling you all. And yes, any questions, Latika? Marike, any
I'm
last
looking,
word?
yeah. How many times can the yarns be reused in the purify process?
I can tell you much more than the yarns that come out of the existing mechanically.
The fibers, yeah.
Yeah, and Michael asked this question. Hey, Michael, how are you? I know you. So at this point of time, much more than what is existing right now. I won't give you that magic number because I'm going to wait for those rejuvenated yarns to come and for the industry to try for themselves. But I can tell you, I can assure you it's more than 10 times. I mean, as the CEO of Joy would say, yes. Any other questions? But otherwise, we'll also tell you it's been such an exciting time. We've been preparing for it, and I think the excitement was to be on the IKEA Foundation week, and we really want to thank you for this opportunity. And it's been such a fun time, and I just love how everything was organized about it, and the organizers who did this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here and telling the story, and for all the interactive questions. Very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And Thea in the background, thank you so much. I don't know if you can show yourself now, but without Thea, our beautiful presentation wouldn't have been possible today.
Alrighty, goodbye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Have a good day.